Over the last few months, the political climate in Somaliland has been tense. With the presidential race set for later this year and the success of the local council and parliamentary elections last year, it is only to be expected. However, the tide turned sour last month when President of the Republic, Muse Bihi Abdi, declared that registrations for political parties were open.
Since
then, it has been a war of words between politicians and their party heads alike. Last week, the court put the case to rest by endorsing the 2011 amendment of Law Number 14 and declaring that indeed registration for parties were open. Now with me today is an outspoken member of the Wadani party, a former minister and ambassador to Ethiopia, and more recently, a former member of the Kulmiye party. Welcome, Mr. Mahmood.
Thank you very much, Amina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Mr. Mahmood, if I may just ask you, I'm wondering, I'm sure everybody's wondering, why the move from Kulmiye and why Wadani?
The move is because I felt unhappy with the direction the current government was taking the country. I became disillusioned with the direction and the leadership of the current government, particularly the president. We had a clear agenda in 2017 prior to the presidential elections, and we failed, or the Kulmiye party failed to deliver that. I felt I was somehow responsible in misleading the general public by campaigning for the president. And once President Bihi came into office, he became completely detached from the program that he was supposed to deliver. He became preoccupied with problems of his own making, like the Tukaraq conflict, which he started with Puntland, with issues of a minor military disciplinary issue, which he made a complete hash of, and as a result became obsessed to the detriment and at the expense of the program he was supposed to be delivering as a part of the promise in the manifesto. So as a result, he failed to make any inroads on foreign policy and our rights and quest for international recognition. He failed to make any inroads on changes and reform to the justice system, which is very important because we have an antiquated and draconian system which we borrowed from the previous dictator, Mohammed Siad Barre. So we're still working with the laws, the criminal justice system of the previous dictator, which is really not on from 2017 onwards, something that we had hoped to see change. He did nothing in that regard. He failed to reform the health service, education. He failed to carry on or carry out the infrastructure projects that we promised. And because of these reasons, I felt uneasy at staying and being part of the Kulmiye party. Our parting was very slow, but it really culminated with parliamentary and local elections, in which I decided to support opposition candidates and finally the Speaker of the House, mainly to ensure that there was checks and balances because we were very unhappy with the way the country was being run. In addition to that, you know, allegations of nepotism and corruption were rife, and so that's why I became very uneasy at being a member of the Kulmiye party. I joined Wadani, coming to the second part of your question, because there was a transformation going on within the Wadani party. Internal change which could attract a wider and a broader part or section of our community and of the general public. So I felt more at home as far as my beliefs and values are concerned with the Wadani Party. And, you know, I am convinced when Wadani comes into office, we can undo some of the damage done over the last 4 years, but furthermore, we can create a more fairer and equitable society. We have many problems that the government is ignoring. For example, we have inflation of basic necessary food going through the roof. Fuel is unaffordable, and it seems that the government is doing nothing. Well, on the contrary, the government appear to be having a good time, putting their fingers in honey and saying everything is okay, when the people, you know, poverty is at its worst, people are suffering, and you know, the general public can really feel the squeeze of an economic downturn. So that's the reason I joined Wadani. Hopefully we can make a difference when we come into office.
Back to the matter at hand, Mr. Mahmood. A while back, presidential nominee Abdurrahman Irro announced that if registration for political parties are open, as President Bihi declared, then so is the presidential race. What exactly does this mean? Does this mean he's going to make himself a president?
It doesn't mean he's going to make himself a president. I think it's political rhetoric, and we shouldn't take political rhetoric literally. If we look at the words or our presidential candidate's speech, first of all, it's been taken completely out of context. The government is using the national TV to control the narrative in this country, a very false narrative. What we would say is our candidate was saying, if the government continues in its present course, the brazen attempt to gerrymander and manipulate the electoral system, manipulate the institutions that are the backbone of our democracy, and attempt to delay the presidential elections so that the parties, the three national parties' licenses expire, then we would not recognize the legitimacy of President Bihi after 13th November, nor would our supporters. That's what our candidate was saying, and I think that's a perfectly valid point. Now it's in the president's hands whether he wants to go down this route and cause chaos in the country, or he wants to hold elections on time. And we really recommend that he observes the law as we do and carries out timely elections on 13th November.
Now, as we all know, there are a number of elections to be held this year, all following a certain timeline. The Giri election coming first, of course, just a few months down the line on the 25th of May. The presidential elections are next on the 13th of November. And finally, the party's election at the end of the year on the 26th of December. Now, some people are claiming that by June 2022, the existing parties will not be able to participate in November elections since they become temporary parties, despite their licenses ending on December 26th. What is your party's position on these parallel timelines?
Our party's position is the president is afraid to compete with us in a general election. The president is very unpopular due to his policies and lack of any fulfillment of his promises. So there is nothing in law, either law number 14, 2011, which the court have declared is the law that we're working with, or law 91, the general elections law, or the constitution, which says we would not be able to compete. We can compete up until the 26th December when our licenses expire. And anybody that tells you otherwise is just living in cloud cuckoo land. It's pure fantasy.
Now, on preparations for presidential elections, just a little related to your answer, President Bihi has publicly committed to hold elections on time. Now, the National Electoral Commission is mandated, of course, to organize these elections, but President Bihi is yet to give them a green light to go ahead and organize the presidential elections, despite the House of Representatives approving almost $5 million for the elections. What, in your opinion, what steps are required to expedite preparations for timely elections?
The President has the signature and the pen in his hand to start the process, whereby we can get ready for general elections. We can also get ready for elections and the ballots for political associations. But I suspect the President doesn't have the confidence to move forward. This is why we're getting all of this noise and untruths about political associations and the timetable of the presidential elections. The timetable is very clear. 26 June, 6 months before the presidential elections, registrations of political associations should begin. The three national parties, the current three national parties, will be waiting for whoever qualifies in order to have an election and have a ballot to determine. Now, we're happy to have the presidential elections, but we're also happy to have the party and association ballots on the same day, on the 13th of November. There is no reason whatsoever for not doing that. In fact, it's a cost-effective way of doing it. You're getting by having it on the 13th of November, because what you're getting is you're getting two for the price of one. All of the cost remains the same, but you're getting two ballots. You're getting the presidential ballot and you're getting the party organization or associations ballots. You will have the results then, but we're happy to have it on the 13th of November, 13th December, 13th January. And what's important really to mention is that unlike the presidential election on the 13th of November, which is set in stone by the Constitution, the presidential elections take precedence over everything else. So if it comes to the situation where we can't have both, because for whatever reason, then the presidential elections must take precedence and must go first. And that's our position as a party. And I think if you speak to any legal analyst or lawyer, they would tell you the same.
Now, last week the court endorsed 2011's amendment of law number 14 and dismissed the 2021 amendment that was done by the former parliament. Now, your party welcomed the decision of the court leading to the registration of new political associations. But why were you in opposition of this in the first place?
We were not in opposition of registration of new parties or new associations. We were in opposition of some unconstitutional amendments that were made to Law 14, the 2021 version. So the President himself wrote to Parliament and said this version of the law is contrary to the Constitution. It's also contrary to the having elections or party association ballots at a national level. They were at a local level through the local elections. That's now been cleared up by the court. So we're very happy, and we're very happy to compete under law number 14, 2011. 2021 version was unconstitutional and unworkable.
The chairman Hirsi Ali Haji Hassan of the Wadani party previously accused President Bihi for politicizing the police and other security forces. Could you elaborate how he came to that conclusion? Of course, in the recent light of the several arrests of journalists and comedians alike.
I think what the chairman of the Wadani party is saying is that the police have to be totally independent. In any democracy, you need the justice system, that's police, judiciary, and everything around it to be independent. And so we need to make the necessary reforms and to ensure that the police are completely independent. We had an unfortunate incident, I think it was the 12th of last month, where police entered the Parliament complex trying to arrest a member of Parliament. Now, Parliament has its own police force, and if anybody is to be arrested, I mean, most of these, all of these MPs have immunity under law, so we should respect the immunity. But if anybody is to be arrested because of a serious offence, that should be instigated by the Parliament's own police force and own security forces. External police should only come in when
there's a threat.
There's a serious threat, and the commander of the parliamentary police makes the request, or the Speaker of the House. Under any other circumstances, they shouldn't enter. And that resulted in live rounds being fired, which is extremely dangerous. So it calls into question neutrality when events such as these happen. I'm not questioning the neutrality of the police, but what I'm saying is, and what our chairman was saying is, we have to strengthen the neutrality and ensure that the police are not being seen to be with the government or the ruling party, but completely independent.
Now, Mr. Mahmood, if you would allow me to read one of the decisions of the Constitutional Court, it said the court calls for all stakeholders to the adherence of the Constitution, other laws and electoral law. What is your take on this, given that your chairman has recently advocated for the rule of law and compliance with the Constitution and other laws?
Our position has always been that we would adhere to the law and the Constitution. And we have clearly stated on many occasions that the government should be doing the same. Our problem is that the government is carrying out and getting into illegal actions. For example, the unilateral calling and statements, proclamations that the political associations are open by a minister saying he speaks on behalf of the president is completely illegal. The only people who can make such declarations are the committee responsible for elections and for registrations. So it's not the business of government to get involved with elections and making declarations. It's completely illegal. They have no right to do. So again, we say we would respect the law, we would respect the Constitution, but the government should do the same.
It should be a law for everybody.
Everybody, a law for everybody, absolutely.
Is your party content with the Constitutional Court's decision separating local council elections from party elections and instead introducing direct political associations elections to be organized by the National Electoral Commission?
I think that was a compromise that we welcome the court's decision. That specific point is legally arguable. It's arguable because people may say the court has no business in making this declaration. This type of declaration should be for Parliament. But since all stakeholders are happy with the outcome, and it seems to be an ad hoc, practical solution to overcome a problem that wasn't foreseen, then I believe that there should be no, we shouldn't make a habit of it, the Constitution Court making declarations and making changes to legislation itself. We shouldn't make a habit of it. But as an opposition, on this particular occasion, we will let it go. And we're happy and content with the outcome of the court.
Finally, tell me what your party's position is on the Giri election scheduled for the 25th of May, considering that the Giri needs the election bill and consultations with various clans and regions in order to ensure representation and seat distributions to clans in an equitable manner.
I think it's one of the failures of this current government, because this is what we should have been working on a year, 2 years ago. Putting together a bill with enough consultation with to ensure that everybody has an input and coming out with a bill that everybody's happy with. At the moment, it doesn't seem realistic that we can have a bill by May and have a Gurti elections. It's a failure of the executive because the executive is responsible for putting into place the chain of events which should culminate with a bill coming before the House. So it's unfortunate. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. I would say it's almost impossible to within 5 months. I think we should concentrate on the other issues like the presidential elections and the elections for political associations first, and as soon as we deal with those, I think we should be dealing with the Gurti, hopefully with the new Wadani government in office.
If I could just follow up, Mr. Mahmood. Now, according to the Constitution, the Gurti has the mandate to extend the term of the president. In that case, some political analysts say that there is a pretext to extend the term of the Gurti and that of the president subsequently. What's your analysis on this?
My analysis of that is that we've passed I scratch your back, you scratch my back. It's not going to happen. The only circumstances in which an extension to the president's term in office can happen under law is if there's a natural disaster. I hope there won't be, but under any other circumstances, with or without Gurti. And I think because the whole world is looking at these elections, our international partners are looking, the general public and the electorate are looking. We're not going to accept any pretexts under any circumstances that an extension be given without a valid reason, and the only valid reason is a natural disaster, which I hope, inshallah, we will not get.
Well, that's it, dear viewers. You've heard it from Mr. Mahmood, a member of the Wadani party. You've heard his views, you've heard his party's views, where he stands, the position of his party as we go into election season. And my name is Amina Hasih for CBA TV. Thank you for watching.